Meeting will come to order. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the November meeting of the Farmville Board of Commissioners. We appreciate you taking this opportunity to involve yourself in this local governing process. This evening, we're pleased to have with us Cedric Frisbee. Mr. Frisbee is the pastor of St. John's Baptist Church here in Farmville, and he's going to come and lead us in our invocation, after which I'll ask you to join with us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We all rise.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come asking your blessing upon this committee, asking for wisdom, guidance, and support as we enter into this meeting. God, help them to engage in meaningful conversation and discussion. God, allow them to grow stronger and be as a group, God, and a bond and community, God. Father God, we ask you to fill them with your grace, God, and they make decisions that are going to affect this community, God. And God, let us be reminded of everything that's done here on tonight. Everything that is accomplished is for the truth and for your glory. We ask these and all blessings in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Again, I want to welcome you to this meeting this evening. I trust that you picked up an agenda package when you walked in the back door, so that you will be able to follow along with us this evening. If you did, you'll see that now we're at citizen presentation item D, and this is where you can speak to this board about anything that's on your mind. We do ask you to sign up before the meeting, and we have 3 people who signed up. Give us their name and their address, and I'm going to call them out as the order in which they are listed on this sheet. But before I do that, I want to recognize Commissioner Brenda Elks and her crew for an outstanding job in the hometown Halloween last Wednesday night. Likewise, I want to recognize the Farmville Police Department and also the Public Works, who did an outstanding job both before and after this. All right, the first person that we want to speak is Minerva. Is that the way I say that right?
Right.
Minerva Freeman.
Good evening to all of you.
Hey.
As you said, my name is Minerva Freeman, and tonight I'm here representing my sorority along with 2 of our members. This is our social action group. And what we do, and I wanted to introduce us to Farmville because this is one of our service areas. We service Farmville, Falkland, Fountain, Stokes, and all of the outside areas. And I have a sheet, if you could give this, and I bought you all something tonight, and it's not a bribery or anything like that, no, but what it was, we know that you all are busy doing your work, so we wanted to make certain that we bring you a healthy snack, so as you go through your paper work and all of that, you will have, and that will be another way to remember us. So, yeah, those forms. What I did, I highlighted not everything that we do, but I wanted to focus on our young people and what we have. You might have more than one.
Yeah, I think you got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Do I have a bunch?
Very good. Pass it down. I just fold them all over, so you might have 2 or 3 of them. So what I
All right, we're ready.
Okay, so what I highlighted in that note was that we work with young people. You know, a lot of time when you think of sororities, you think of these wild parties. We don't do that. Maybe because we're getting a little older, but I wanted to put in some of the things that we do for our young people, and since we're in the Farmville school area, attendance area, we have Falkland and Farmville, Farmville Middle, Farmville Central. So we wanted to let you know that we work with our Delta Academy, and you will find that information. I'm not going to go through all of that. We provide mentoring for young girls in middle school. I also had something in there about young boys. We're particularly concerned about young boys, and during the summer, I came over to Farmville, and I talked with the young man that operates the Boys and Girls Club here, and we're looking forward to doing something with the Boys and Girls, well, it is the Boys and Girls Club, but to show special attention to the boys in the spring of the year. So we'll look forward to that. The other thing, by way of information for you all, we have a sign out there on 264, like you're going to Wilson, and it is Pitt County Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. And we go out there and we pick up trash. Even when we're looking nice, we have on our gloves and our vests, and we could pick up trash to beautify that area of 264. So sometime when you're riding past, you'll see our sign. So we're doing work in your community. So we wanted to make certain that we come to let you know that we're here. If it's anything that we can do, I think there's a phone number there. You can call us. We might can collaborate on some project or something like that. We'd love to do that. If it's within our range to do, we would love to do that. So that was the reason we wanted to come tonight, just to let you know that Delta Sigma Theta Sorority is in your service, it's in your town, but it's our service area. And call on us. Let us know if it's anything that we can do. Okay?
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much.
All right. David Dupree or Bobby Joyner. There's both of you on the line. I think I failed to mention, and Minerva did not violate it, but we do ask you to keep your remarks at about 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. Sorry. Thank you, sir.
You're already on borrowed time, ain't you?
Hey.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor Evans, Commissioners, my name is Bobby Joyner. I'm president of the H.B. Suggs Charitable Organization. The purpose of our organization is, 7 years ago we came up with a mission, and that was to preserve the tradition of the H.B. Suggs High School and assembling alumni members and citizens working together in coordinated efforts designed to promote education, social, cultural, equitable opportunities while embracing diversity, inclusion, pride, and the heritage of our alma mater, consequently creating historical living legacy for the H.B. Suggs School. We put together a proposal to build an H.B. Suggs Park on the corner of Cotton and Main, which would enhance the community, the town. It is a fabulous project. In putting the proposal together, it's very costly. It's probably the most expensive piece of art in Farmville once we complete it. Because of the total amount of the project, I put it together in phases. Phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. Phase 1, we have already completed. We've funded that. We had the unveiling of it September 1st. We had over 200 people to come to the unveiling, thanks to our partners in the media and other places, was there. Because I'm president, I had a view from the podium. The 200 people, it was the most diverse crowd. I grew up here, and that was my vision of Farmville 50 years ago, to see everybody working and being together. It was a beautiful sight. So what we've done, as I say, Phase 1 is already completed. We're into Phase 2 at this point, which is the construction and pouring the foundation for the bricks, which I've supplied each one of you with the bricks that would represent family members, alumni, whatever it is that the person wanted to put on their brick. So once again, this would probably be the most expensive piece of art in Farmville, and will just add so much value to that Main Street corridor. Once it's completed, every phase of it adds new value to the town. So what I'm asking for is support on Phase 2. I am asking the town to donate to the H.B. Suggs Charitable Organization the amount of $10,000 to help us start and complete this project. The total park, we have a completion date of 2020, and that's based on the amount of funds that we can raise. Hopefully, we can complete it before 2020, but that's the date right now based on what we think we can do. So that's why I'm here tonight, to ask you for a donation to help us complete Phase 2.
Thank you,
Any-
Bobby.
any
Anybody have
questions?
questions for Bobby?
Mayor, is this something that we can act on tonight, or is this something we just receiving information on?
Well, that's something we just received information, which is important that we get this.
Can it become an agenda item tonight?
Well, it could, we have done that, but I don't know whether you need more time to think about it or not, which would mean that we would do it in December.
Oh.
Okay.
Let me, I'd like to see this as an agenda item tonight. Because this board earmarked some money for higher education in the budget meeting that we have not spent, and I don't remember how much it was. But I think we might be in a position to fund part of this tonight, and if we could make it an agenda item.
Okay.
If the board would be willing to
Yeah.
do that.
What do you think about this, board? We do have item G is changes, additions, and deletions to the agenda. Do you want to consider this tonight, or do you need more time?
I'm fine considering it tonight.
All right, you want to make a motion then that we add it at that point?
Yes, sir, I'll make a motion that we add this to agenda item G.
Okay, all right. You've heard the motion by Commissioner Elks. Any discussion? All those in favor of this motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we'll take care of it when we get to that
Okay.
item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, next is Diane Hudson talking about drainage.
Good evening. I would like to know who I need to contact. I've contacted Public Works as well as the town manager about several drainage issues on Allen Street. The corner of Allen and Continua, every time there's a big downpour, the drainage backs up across the street. So, I mean, that's an issue getting into Allen Street. Also, I live on the dead-end part. The other drain for that street is right in front of my house. I have to clean it regularly, and the drainage pipe there is exposed, and tonight when I went, I almost stepped in a hole because the drainage is eating away there, as well as it's eating my driveway because water sits where the road has dipped down because of all the water there. And I just need to know who I need to contact to get some stuff fixed down there. Thank you.
David, would you like to comment on that?
I've talked with Ms. Hudson in the past about those two issues, and Wes Thomas, our Public Works Director, and I have conversed about it, so we're aware of the issues. We have not addressed them as she noted, but they are on our list. we're aware of the,
So we can assure her that we're looking at it and going to
Yes,
do
sir.
what we can, okay. Did you get that, Diane?
So when I follow in the hole, that's when we take care of.
Well, hopefully before then. All right. That completes our citizen presentation. We're now down to town manager comments.
thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Just had a couple quick things. Fortunately, we did not have much damage during Hurricane Florence, but this is the time when we're going through the process of documenting our response and cost related to response for the hurricane. So we had our first official meeting today with FEMA, and we are getting that information together for them. Obviously, they had other areas, other counties that had more damage and more immediate needs. So we're, Pitt County, sort of at the end of this cycle. So I just want to let you know, we are going to submit documentation of cost and should expect some reimbursement shortly. I'll let you know how that goes. You should have gotten something from Cindy Thomas about upcoming events. I won't go through all those, but we've got several events coming up in December. The tree lighting, Taste of Farmville, Christmas parade, those types of things. So I just wanted to make sure you saw that and that these items were on your calendar. And then lastly, the county and City of Greenville and Greenville Utilities Commission have started this, I think they call it the convergent process for economic development. They're trying to do something new with joining forces to try to come up with a unified countywide economic development program. And they are, those entities are funding it. We're not being asked to fund anything. However, they have opened up their meetings and invited the smaller towns to participate too as ex officio members. So that first meeting is going to be on Thursday, and we'll have representation at that and the subsequent meetings. And we'll hopefully have some more to report at your next Board of Commissioners meeting. But the Pitt County Development Commission is going through some leadership changes, and I think they're sort of trying to figure out how to better serve areas outside of Greenville and spread some of the wealth around to some of the other areas of Pitt County. So that's we certainly want to support that. So we'll keep you posted on that, but there's a series of meetings scheduled with the first one being on Thursday of this week. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next is the financial report, which is included in our agenda packet and one that we can ask questions on if we have any. Does anyone have any questions on the financial report? All right, now we propose to add one other to the changes, additions, and deletions. Do you have anything, David?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, if not, then we'll make, if you go down to agenda item 10, that would be the HP SUG funding request on the items for decision and discussion. All right, I'm assuming that you will agree to all this, but let's have a motion to approve the agenda at this point in time.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Ellis made the motion. Any discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. The ayes have it. So the only difference is, from what you see printed, is that we did add the HB funding request. All right, now we're going into the public hearings, and I guess I'll look to Mr. Ellis here.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. The first property we're discussing is located at 3660 Cameron Street, Peake County, parcel number 120112. There's pictures coming down, and as you look at those pictures, you can tell that this property needs quite a bit of work to bring it to minimum housing standards. The owner started working on this property probably 7 years ago. For some reason, he quit. He's moved away. I've not been able to contact him at all. I've when I sent a letter to get someone to meet me to help with entering the building for the inspections, nobody showed up. So I just inspected from outside the house, and I found that the roof needs to be replaced. There's wood rot around the fascia boards. There's wood rot around the windows. There's several broken windows. There's wood rot around the eaves of the house. And because I could not go in to inspect, I do suspect that there's electrical and plumbing systems need to be updated. At this time, I'm asking permission to move forward with the condemnation process.
Okay, thank you. All right, you've heard the presentation. Now I want to declare this public hearing where you have an opportunity to speak about this to this board. So declare the public hearing open at this time, and if any of you have anything that you want to speak to us about concerning this property on Cameron Street. Since there are no no comments, we'll declare the public hearing to be closed. And with that, board, I'll ask you, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the request to demolish the structure.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Dixon that we proceed with demolition of this structure. Any comments, questions? With the motion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? The ayes have it. All right, you have another one, don't you?
This property is located at 4393 Wallace Street. It's Pitt County parcel 01975. As you look at these pictures, you can tell that this property has been in really bad shape. It's been vacant for several years. It's in very poor repair. The owner has been sent all the required certified letters. She has talked to me several times, as a matter of fact, about this property. She wishes to take it down. However, at this point, nothing has been done to take it down, so I still want to move forward with the process. But she assures me she's going to take it down. As a matter of fact, I have given her my contacts for local contractors to take it down, and she's just waiting for them to contact her, I believe. But she lives out of state, but she has made efforts to have a conversation about the property, and it really needs to come down. It's not salvageable.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Paul. Okay, audience, you've heard the presentation by Mr. Ellis, and now declare this public hearing to be open for you to speak to us about this property. Anyone who would like to come forward and speak, please do so. Seeing there are none, I'll declare the public hearing to be closed. And board, I'll ask you what's your pleasure in this property.
I move to approve the request to abolish the
Okay.
structure.
Commissioner Hobbs made the motion to approve this request to demolish this house. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Okay.
And it's just because I'm not sure. So if she says she wants to take this down, do we bill her for that, or no? So we,
Just pay on her. She pays for contract. This is what we want.
Okay.
We want her to pay the contract. We want it.
perfect. Okay. All right. That's what I want to know. I'm good.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. The ayes have it. Okay, the next public hearing is on the zoning text amendment. David, you gonna take care of that one?
Yes, sir, I'll start out. We've got several representatives that you may want to hear from during the public hearing, but this issue is a zoning text amendment request. It is to create a solar power overlay district, which would be something new to the Farmville zoning ordinance. This could then be applied to areas that are currently zoned industrial or RA20, which is low-density residential and agricultural. This matter did come to the planning board back in August and in September. There were several lengthy discussions on the matter and information that was requested at the first meeting, and then the petitioners came back in September with the information that was requested. Basically, and the folks here will explain it in more detail, but basically the amendment would impose strict guidelines for establishment of new solar farms in Farmville, would limit them to areas that are zoned RA20 or industrial. There's various other things that are outlined in the text amendment that you have in your packet, but things like extensive buffering, separation between other solar farms, which would be minimum of 3 miles. What happens when the solar farm is decommissioned? How is that handled? Lighting, all sorts of things that are addressed. Separation from residential property, setbacks from the street, that kind of thing. So this is, as I said, this matter did come to the planning board twice. On September 11th, the planning board did, after suggesting some changes, did recommend approval of this. And I want to emphasize that this is just a text amendment. This is not rezoning any property for solar farms. It's just adding this text to the zoning ordinance to then allow it to be a request to be made to apply the new overlay district to a particular piece of property. So this doesn't open up the town for solar farms. It's just adding this zoning district. It's like adding a residential district or whatever to the zoning ordinance that we don't have now. And as I said, there's several people here that are representing the petitioner, I guess.
Okay, is that it?
Yes, sir.
All right. You've heard the presentation by Mr. Hodgkins. I'll declare this public hearing to be open now for allow you to speak. And tell us who you are.
Mayor Evans and members of the commission, I'm Tom Terror. After a law firm merger last Thursday, today is the very first time I can say I'm with the law firm Fox Rothschild, but I'm glad to be back here in Farmville representing Strata Solar and also speaking for Stewart and Thorne James, who are owners of a particular tract here in Farmville. This is not the first time we've been here. Strata was here in 2016. There were different folks in opposition. There was some opposition from the Davis-Conti Trust. We heard what the town was saying, and we went back to the drawing board, not just on this site, but on another site. And what we have presented to you is a request for a text amendment to allow solar farms, but it's a text amendment that presents a gateway to solar farms that is the strictest I have ever seen in 3 states. I would challenge anybody to find a solar ordinance anywhere that has setbacks as long and as far as 1,500 feet between the outer boundary of the facility and a residence. That's close to 1/3 of a mile, and 1,500 feet from the outer boundary of the facility and a hard surface road. It has to be of a certain size. So you can't just put them anywhere. And this was one of the things that we were hearing when we were here, was a concern about would people know it's there, would there be a proliferation? We put into the ordinance that there cannot be any outdoor lighting. We put in there that there has to be a 50-foot wide buffer, either a natural 50-foot buffer, or you have to plant a buffer with 50 feet. And that buffer can't just be something that you just stick in the ground. You have to have a certified landscape architect or someone who would testify in writing that what you plant there would be evergreen and it would work well in these soils, and not just in these native soils generally, but these soils. We have to have somebody, according to the law, this is written into what we propose, who would be a local landscape architect, who would make sure that the buffer is well maintained. If a tree or shrub were to die, it would have to be replaced. When we went to the planning board the first time, there was some concern that there still could be a proliferation of solar farms. They were hearing this from folks in the community. So we came back and proposed, well, let's impose two other requirements. You have to be adjacent to industrial, number one, and number two, that you cannot be any closer than a mile from an existing facility. And based on where you have to, the various points that exist for connecting to a solar, to the grid, there really weren't any left. The planning board discussed that. We had a really good conversation, and they said, how about this? Let's make that a 3-mile separation, but a 3-mile separation from a facility in an RA district. So we agreed to that, and we asked that that be incorporated into our application for the text amendment. Now, some words got left out. David and I have spoken about this, but we would like to have added back in as the planning board suggested, and we incorporated, it would be 3 miles from an existing solar farm within an ROA district. Regarding neighborhood opposition, we met with everybody in the Pecan Grove, had a big meeting in 2016, because there is a site nearby where we were wanting to place a facility, and they seemed to be okay. There were some neighbors on May Court and other places who had issues. We have worked with them. It's my understanding that you're not going to hear any opposition from that. We had some questions and opposition from the De Visconti Trust. I will be honest with you, we did not know what the De Visconti Trust was when we came here into Farmville. We know now, and we have sat down with the trust. We have had some very good conversations, some very firm handshakes with the trustee, and the trust has agreed to provide a buffer along one side of what is now trust property. And if this text amendment is passed, David will tell you, we can't get a permit until that trust actually signs something to make that a permanent easement on the other side to protect people from that view. I want to address one other thing before I sit down and call on our landscape expert. There is another solar farm in Farmville. We call it the Augusta site, but it's a little bit up 121. It's on land that's zoned industrial. The landscaping and other requirements have not existed for that site, but more than that, the company that has been maintaining that has not done the job they were supposed to do. And this is why we have entered into a contract with a local contractor, and the ordinance requires that. And in addition to that, we have somebody from Worthington Farms here to address it. Everybody says, if you want somebody to do it and do it right, talk to Worthington Farms. So I'd like to introduce Todd Williams, who will explain to you why, if you want to talk about that site some too, Todd, because that's been redone. But he will tell you that he's been out and tested the soils on the site in question where Strata wants to go, and has come up with a landscaping plan that will work to buffer it. And we also have some buffers to illustrate. Before I sit down, Sam, would you hand up that 3-mile exhibit? I think this is to illustrate.
Mayor, I think we need to suspend 3 minutes.
I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
No, I think we need to suspend that.
Okay.
So we don't get caught in the trap of continuing on.
Okay.
We could suspend that, sir.
This exhibit illustrates that if with the 3-mile distance separation, that there really would not be another solar farm in Farmville.
Okay.
If you want to expand that, Todd Williams would follow me.
No, well, he's got an opportunity too, yeah. Okay. That was just applying to you, I think is what his suggestion was, or his request.
Good evening.
But it is a public hearing, and so we'll
Yeah.
listen to the public. Okay.
Mayor Evans and Commissioner. My name is Todd Williams. I'm with Worthington Farms. My main reason for being here tonight is just to have a local person that Strata Solar can that can be between the town of Farmville and them, that can assure you that whatever is planted around the solar farm, that it will be completely buffered, and that with the setback of 1,800 feet that they're proposing at the Beaker Farm, what we have suggested to them is to plant something native, wax myrtles, and just to give you an idea, hopefully most of you have been down to what they were calling the Augustus Farm, which is down in the industrial park. And initially, that site was not, they didn't use local people, and there was some problems there. There was a lot of drainage problems. Since then, they've come back and replanted that farm, and I think if you ride by, you'll see that the main plant there is a wax myrtle. It's a native shrub, evergreen shrub, that will get at least 10 feet tall, and they can get bigger, but my proposal was that they would be maintained in a sightly way and not to plant anything else, but to use a double row that would give planted at 8 foot on center spacing to give a complete buffer. And some said, well, why don't we put some crepe myrtles in there and other things? But the idea here, in my opinion, was that you want to buffer something, so you want to keep it native looking. You don't want to bring a lot of attention. Anytime you start planting trees with flowers or anything else, you're going to bring, the eye's going to go toward that. So my recommendation to Strata Solar and to the planning board, and now to you folks, would be to let us go in with an all-native buffer, but to go in with at least 5 to 6 foot material. And this is a plant that will grow rapidly and should be well over the top of the fence, and probably will be to the 10 foot, I would guess, in about 2 years if maintained. And so my recommendation to Strata Solar is that they use a plant that is native to Pitt County, that can take the soil conditions here, the pH and everything, and to hire a local contractor. Smithco is the company out of Kinston, who came back and redid the existing Augustus site down in the industrial park. And once they came back and did some drainage and kind of burned it up, I think everyone would agree that it looks a lot better. Now, most recently, about 2 to 3 weeks ago, they came back and replaced across the front. There were 42 plants that were not evergreen, and they went back and replaced those with the same plant. We tried to go in with some larger plants. I think that they have, since they were planted when it was still warm, I think those are a little off color. I rode by there over the weekend, but I can assure you they're still viable plants, and they will be fine. So my main reason, again, for being here is just to assure you folks that I'm local. I'll make sure that they do what they say that they'll do, and I can tell you they're completely committed to buffering this solar farm to your desires. And if this board wants more than just the wax myrtles, then we'll do whatever is necessary to make that happen. And I'm here to answer any questions if you have any for me.
Anybody have any questions for Tom?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Do you have anyone else that wants to?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Jackson Naftel. I'm a Director of Development for Strata Solar. I just want to take a quick minute to show you some images of the buffer that Todd just described, and also let you know that this was sent to 47 landowners neighboring the property with my personal cell phone number and a letter explaining what we're doing here tonight. So we have made this a public discussion. So as it's been mentioned, we're setting back about 1,800 feet from the road approximately. This is an image of what the wax myrtles look like. This is an aerial image of what they would look like. So 3 rows of wax myrtles. We do have some native grasses shown here. That's up for discussion. We've had mixed feedback on that, on whether or not we should include that. We're happy to go either way. What these native grasses do is they provide an opportunity for bees to pollinate, and a habitat for small animals in the area. So some jurisdictions like it, some don't, and we're open to discussing that. This is what it would look like up close. This is, if you see here, this is the view from the road, but to zoom in, this is what it would look like in detail. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions you have of Strata, of the project, or of our existing project. Well, thank y'all very much.
How many acres is this one going to be?
This would be approximately 30 acres. Is that 35 acres.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, the public hearing is still going on. Anyone else that would like to speak to this board about this project?
Mayor, could we get somebody from the planning board to address this? Just a couple of questions from the planning board.
If you have one, I think Bert's here, isn't he?
Bert, could you come up just for a couple of questions? Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if anybody else has got any, but the first one, the planning board, was this 100% vote to do this?
It actually was.
Okay. Okay. And then the next one I got is not a single person out of the dozens, literally dozens, that contacted me the first time this came up, whenever it was. None of them came forth this time, no problems with this.
To my knowledge, none of them came forward. And I had talked with several people on May Court the first time the issue came before the planning board, and they had objections, and I'm pretty sure at least none came forward and mentioned it to me, and I don't think any of them had knowledge or not knowledge, but they had the knowledge, but they did not come forward. They had no objection.
So Jackson said that he sent out 40-some letters and nobody had a problem with it, and nobody has contacted me on this time.
Right.
And then you're telling us that nobody has been in opposition this time, and that the planning board is 100% behind it.
That's correct. Now, that was with the restrict. We put some further restrictions on their proposal. I think it was the 3-mile limit was a big one, because that virtually assures us that there's not any possibility of another one being in that area. Right. Our concern was one, the proliferation of solar farms around the Farmville area, and we were very concerned about that. And our second big concern was the concern or the desires of the adjacent property owners. And so we resolved the one issue about the proliferation of the solar farms with the 3-mile limit, and then we had no objections from any property owners.
One of the issues facing solar farms is a state issue right now, and it's probably just a small ripple right now. And in Section C of the decommissioning plans described, is that something that we're not going to have to deal with? And I mean, are we okay? Is your board okay with the decommissioning of this? Because it is going to be an issue.
Yeah.
You and I may not be around for it, but it's going to be an issue.
I hope I'm around that long.
Your daddy was. You will be.
Yeah, I may be. We were concerned about that, and we went over that, and of course, Strata assured us, and Tom assured us that they would comply with everything and with the value of, what am I going to say, the recycling of the equipment and the type of stuff that they use for that there would be no problem with the breaking up of the farm when the termination of the solar farms. Okay. So, and we feel satisfied with it. I mean, we probably I think they were here for 2 straight meetings in maybe July and August. And finally, after hours, I think that y'all were probably getting quite frustrated with us. We felt like that we had enough restrictions on it that we wouldn't have to worry a lot with anything, that they would comply with everything and with the restrictions. I think it originally went from a 55-acre farm to a 35-acre or something like that. And so it's about half the size, the original size.
Yeah, and I'm probably an expert at selective hearing. So I'm going to ask you this. Did I hear that this would be the last solar farm that we will be dealing with at Farmville? Did I understand that correctly, or is that?
I think probably with the restrictions, it probably will. Don't you guys think so? That's kind of the impression I got when we put our stamp on it.
Yes.
Well, my main concern was people, the decommission. Somebody could be knocking on our door next week, and of course I know Todd Williams is a man of character and integrity, and when he puts his stamp on it, that pretty much takes me where I want to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, we were very satisfied with the final result, but it took us a long time to get there.
All right, thank you.
What is the life of these farms that we're talking about here tonight? How long do they go?
Well, that seems to be the $64 question right now, David.
It ranges between, at a minimum, 20 years up to 40 years.
So, decommission, you may be here.
Well, the decommission is definitely getting play, and there are a lot of concerns about that. But if the planning board has already addressed it, if it's been addressed and it's already in writing, then I'm good if the issue has been addressed. And I'm sure as those mandates come down over the next 20 to 40 years, there'll be a lot of changes, but we should be ahead of the game, and my granddaughters will be good to go.
Okay. Anyone else that wants to speak to this? All right, we'll close the public hearing then, since we've heard from everybody. We appreciate you guys coming and share with us, and Bert answering John's questions. How about the rest of you? Do you have a question?
Just ask Todd a question. Todd,
Okay.
what would be that next step you referred to as far as the buffer goes? I mean, I know you're talking about 3 rows of wax myrtles as opposed to 2 at the current site, but what would be the next step to thicken it up or beef it up a little bit more?
I think just proper maintenance, and the contractor, excuse me, let me get up here. The contractor that would install it has said that he would maintain it. So the one thing about wax myrtles, I mean, being a native plant, it is going to require some pruning and some fertilizing to keep them healthy, and they will absolutely fill in and flourish as long as those things are done. So that's the main thing, is not like coming back and planting more, because at an 8-foot staggered spacing, I mean, these plants will, and we're going to go in with 15-gallon plants, so they're already going to be 4 feet wide going in, and at a staggered spacing, you know, you basically won't have gaps, but as the idea is for that double row to grow together and just be really a wall of green, and with proper maintenance, it should be fine.
And you talk about the crepe myrtles attracting the eye. In your opinion, that 1,800 feet would black-eyed Susans or whatever they're called attract the eye, or would that be?
No, I think with as far as habitat for for wildlife, I mean, that's a great idea, and I think that has been used in other municipalities around. But so I mean, I certainly don't have a problem with that. The wax myrtles would give you the upper buffer, and it was even mentioned, would you want to mix some pine trees in it? And pine trees obviously would be native too, but the wax myrtles are going to give you the screening that you need to hide the panels. And so the pine trees eventually are just going to get tall and not going to do a whole lot. So, but that is in other buffers where you're trying to buffer like 3, 4, or high-rise buildings, then I would see the pine trees. Actually, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I think that's totally up to this board. If you like the wildflower idea or any flowers, but my main thing was just a recommendation of a native plant and just, not to not bring attention to that, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions you have for any of these guys? Okay, Dave, before we get a motion, tell us again what the action we take tonight, what it would do.
Okay, tonight you're considering a text amendment to the text of the zoning ordinance to add a solar power overlay district as an overlay district that could be applied over the industrial zone or RA20 zone. So you're just, again, it's just a text change to the ordinance. It's not applying any zoning classification to a particular piece of property. And to follow up Mr. Terrell's comment about the wording, one word was left off of the text that you got. On the ordinance that's listed in your packet on B, subsection 5, separation, that should read, the site shall not be closer than 3 miles from an existing solar farm in RA district as measured from the closest points of each panel or each parcel. So just you're adding NRA 20 instead of an existing solar farm, period. It's addressing that the farm would be RA 20, 3 mile separation. That would address the fact that this farm is potentially going to be within 3 miles of the existing farm.
Is that what it is now? 3 miles?
Actually, what, a mile? Yeah, so, but the other one, as they pointed out, is an industrial district.
Okay. But we talk about the restrictions we have on it. Is that the primary restriction?
Well, that was the only thing that's changed from the text that you had in your packet.
Those will only come out here to Jonas Crossroads and put one.
It's basically 3 miles from any solar farm, either this one or the other one. We literally took out a map and started measuring at the planning board and realized that there's not. The 3 mile would eliminate, as they said, eliminate the chance of future solar farms in Farmville's jurisdiction.
So this would be it then?
Correct.
Okay. If any of you have any more questions? All right, you understand what we're doing tonight. We're not saying that that we're putting it in a particular place. We're just changing these zoning to allow.
You're just adding a new overlay zone to your zoning ordinance.
All right. Since you have no more questions, is there a motion then that how we proceed with this?
Mayor, I'll make a motion, we approved the text amendment to the RA20 zoning district.
Okay. All right, board, you've heard the motion by Commissioner Dixon. Is there any discussion on this?
Just as a point of clarification, it's not a text amendment to RA20, it's just adding an overlay district to the ordinance, to the zoning ordinance. It could be applied to RA20 or industrial.
All right, you need to change your motion then.
Well, I need to understand better then.
Yeah,
I'm
you
sorry.
need to understand what you're talking about.
Okay, you're just adding a new overlay zoning category to the ordinance, which could then, with a petition, be applied to an industrial zone or an RA20 zone. It's like a floating zone that's nowhere on the map, and then someone asked for it, but it couldn't go like in R8 or somewhere. It had to go on RA20 or industrial.
Why wouldn't we just modify the RA20 zoning district?
Because you don't, I mean, this is tough, this is more restricted. If you just add it as a permitted use in RA20, then you could just come in and do by right.
So how is this different than like, what do we call it? A special exception, I'm not sure what the terminology is, a variance?
Variances or special exceptions are granted by the Board of Adjustment for so it would become a different type of, I mean, this gives you more control, a legislative act. Not trying to be the attorney, but it's the rezoning, you can turn them down easier than the planning board or board of adjustment can turn down a special exception. I guess that's oversimplifying it, but I think it's correct. What you said was fine, just don't reference RE20.
Well, I want to reference RA20. I don't want to not reference it.
Well, the text amendment includes only RE20 and industrial, the way it's written.
I'm happy to accept the substitute motion if my motion is not appropriate.
Well, yeah, we've closed the public hearing. So you are withdrawing your motion?
I withdraw my motion.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion. Nobody?
I will honestly admit that I'm very confused at this point as to what we should be and should not be doing.
In the text amendment, it already says RE20 and industrial. What Commissioner Dixon said was RE20. So I was just saying that either don't reference don't reference a zoning zoning district, or reference RE20 and industrial too. Right now, they're already permitted in industrial. Even if you didn't do this tomorrow, somebody could come in an industrial zone. And this would actually make it more tougher. So it was really more clarification. I mean, what he said was fine. It's just that it didn't include industrial in it. If he said RE20 and industrial, I don't know, is that not correct?
I think what you're saying is just move adoption of the ordinance. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, he referenced just one zoning category, but it actually applies to more than one. Yeah, to two.
Yeah.
That was the only.
So you want to include the industrial too, is that right?
Well, it's written that way in the text amendment.
Yeah.
I just so it would be clear, I thought if you included both or none, then.
Would you consider your motion and not mention RA20?
I admit that if my motion was not worded correctly, it's because I don't understand the issue well enough to vote on it tonight. I will make that admission.
Would you be more comfortable if it was an agenda item instead of where we are with it tonight? Would you be more comfortable if it was an agenda item in December?
Probably.
With that?
Well, it is confusing, I think.
I think it just move adoption of the ordinance. Isn't that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just.
I don't know that the motion would need to reference a particular zoning district. The language that they're asking to have adopted references the zoning districts that this would be applicable.
Okay, what would you want to happen between now and December?
Maybe if we could get a brochure about zoning overlay districts or something like that, kind of a Cliff Notes for dummies or something about zoning overlays. Then
Waiting 2 years, it's 30 days, don't matter.
Probably feel more comfortable. Or we could get Harry or Tim or one of those guys, or Bert, if Bert's, somebody, I know the planning board's got a lot of time in this, maybe they understand it in a way that we can understand it. Maybe they could tell us in a way that we could understand it.
Well, we need to be really, really clear on it, because I'm sure if you go to the post office tomorrow and somebody asks, we need to be real clear.
Yeah, I don't want to be like Cousin Eddie up here,
Right.
All right, I didn't,
I guess if you wanted to restrict it to RA20, that would But I don't know why you would want to exclude industrial since it's already allowed there now without all the restrictions. Yeah, RA20 would be more objectionable to people, I would think, than putting it in an industrial zone. My point was just to clarify, not to change. What he said in his motion was fine, except just referring to one district.
No, you make a good, I mean, you bring up a good point, and that point is that I don't understand it well enough to speak about it, and I'd rather wait until I understand it better to vote on it. Although, I mean, the rest of the board can certainly vote.
Well, that's what I was getting ready, you're only one person, the rest of them have to vote on it, they can also make a motion.
Well, you look at one of the leading real estate agent people in the state of North Carolina. If he don't understand that, I promise you I don't. Now, many people would admit that, would. I mean, I'd like for the board to be 100% on this as the planning board was. And, Mr. Terrell, unless there's something you didn't share with us of why you would absolutely positively have to have this tonight, and it's something we couldn't wait until December.
Oh, it could wait. That's the board's.
Well, I tell you where I am. I'd really like for my colleague to be completely 100% understanding this as we move forward with it. And, I mean, you've answered my questions, but I'd like to see the board in 100% vote on this, and I think you can understand that, why we would want to be 100% in this.
And I will say that I feel like we're going into it blind because we were not even, I personally, I'm not going to say we, I personally wasn't even aware that you all had come back looking to get this approved again through the planning board. So it's like I told you when we first started talking, if I had questions I was going to ask you, you've answered a bunch of the questions, but I still feel that we're blind, this board is blind going into this decision. I mean, were any of your 40-some letters returned? Did you all send them certified mail so that you know that they were delivered to those homes? And I mean, that to me is a big deal, I guess. That I'm concerned about the residents, and I back the planning board 100%. But we had so much opposition to begin with. I just don't understand why some of these homeowners haven't come to ask questions. That's my thing, and I just feel like we're walking into this blind because I had no clue until it was on the agenda that you all were even back. Again, the James family contacted me to begin with when they, were trying to get the vote to begin with, but I've not heard a word, and I personally didn't have a clue until it was in my agenda packet that there was even any discussion of it going on at this point. I just feel like we need to be better prepared before we make a decision.
Well, I'm making the assumption that the reason we haven't heard from the neighbors is because you did a good job of educating them.
Worked very hard.
Yeah.
It's been changed.
All right, I guess we're down to where we want to postpone it till in December. And if we do, I'd like to have a motion to that, and also include what you'd like to have additional information that would be helpful to you. So is there a motion that we move this into December?
Let me, and I'll be happy to make that motion, but
Okay.
before I make the motion, I'd rather say what would be helpful. I think what would be helpful is a copy of the chapter, the zoning chapter in our ordinances, what the current, how the current chapter reads and the revised chapter. And then I would probably like to have somebody who thinks like you but talks like me's interpretation of how this changes things in Farmville, North Carolina.
And I think I'd like to see a copy of the letter that was sent to the homeowners in that area. Do you have that?
Yeah, I do. I'll begin that too.
Perfect. Thank you.
I would like to.
Yeah, let's give it, do you have enough for all of
Well,
us?
we'll see how many takers I have here.
All right, so you explained the two things you wanted, and this is one that Commissioner Phelps wanted. What else do we need if we postpone? If we're going to postpone it, we need the further information that would help us make the decision in December.
I'm satisfied with what we've asked for at this point,
Okay.
for that information for December.
All right. You want to make that motion, or you want Commissioner Dixon to make it?
I'm trying to look up chapter 157, let her make it.
All right. Brenda, you want to make that?
I'd like to make a motion that we postpone our decision on the, I don't even know how to say it, on the wording of the text for the Strata Solar issue for December with the appropriate materials that we've asked for prior to.
Okay.
Right, David?
Yeah.
Did that work?
Yes.
Okay. That ain't me.
Everybody got that? I'd like to see a timeline. I mean, if this is approved, what happens next? And when will it? All right, any other questions? Discussion? All those in favor of moving this to December and asking these gentlemen to provide us with the information that we've asked for? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no? Ayes have it. So we're going to have you back here in town one more time. Appreciate it. All right.
And before y'all leave, we're going to vote on what time our December meeting is.
Yeah, that's right.
Wait for that, because we have a conflict that night, so.
All right, now we're down to item I, which is numbers 4 and 5, and they are items for consent. I'm assuming that that these would be, well, is there any reason to move one of these off the consent agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to address item number 5, if I could.
All right,
As far as scheduling, because I know that the fire department dinners is important. I was wondering if we could move that up, keep our regular Monday meeting, and just move our time frame up to 5 o'clock that day.
I don't think we'll have enough time. I think we need to move up to 4 o'clock.
As I was saying, move to 4 o'clock.
yeah, because we just added a lot to the,
And I mean, anytime mid-after, 3 or whatever the board would like to do, and that way we can meet and still go and keep it on a regular day.
let me ask the town manager, what do you think about this?
I'm here.
Do you think 4 o'clock will
As
give
far
us
as the
enough time?
items, trying to get everything done within a couple hours,
Yeah.
we should be fine. We do have several items, but we should be
Do you think 4 would work?
okay. Yeah, I would definitely say 4 other than 5, because 5 is too late.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right, then let's have a motion to change this, John.
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion that the board have its meeting on the regular day, Monday the 3rd, but change the time to 4 p.m.
Okay. And you approved the rest of the consent agenda, which is only
Yes, sir.
one
With that
item.
change, I
Okay.
make a motion we approve it.
All right. Y'all understand where we're on this? All those in favor of this motion to approve the item by consent and to change the date and time of the December meeting? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Ayes have it.
It's the
we're
same
not changing the
date,
date. It's gonna
but
be
a
the same
different time.
date.
It's 4 o'clock instead of 6:30.
Yeah, it'll be the same day.
Well, it was a change from what we recommended, what's on.
Right, change from what
Yeah.
I put in here.
All right. Y'all got that? You got that, Tom?
So we'll be at 4 o'clock instead
On
of
the
6:30.
On the 3rd. All right, moving along now, we're at items for decision, and we're at agenda item number 6. the 2018 planning retreat action update. David, that's you.
Mayor, members of the board, each year we do an update around this time on some of the things that, all the things that were discussed at the retreat back in February. And what I've done is given you a summary of what was discussed at the retreat, which is in comments which are listed in black that night, or that day, excuse me, those 2 days. And then what's shown in red in your packet are the actions that have come out of those discussion topics. So I'm not sure if you want me to go through all of those, but we have made very good progress. I think, actually, Commissioner Moore asked me if we were halfway done, and I said I thought we were, what did I say, 85, 90% done, and maybe even higher than that. So I'll be glad to run through these quickly or just let you read them.
I don't believe that would be necessary unless somebody won't.
Yeah, this is just a report, basically.
Because,
I just have a question.
okay.
I always have a question.
Make it good.
I loved reading what we've done compared to what we talked about that day, and I'm very pleased with that. I only have one issue, and that is I have yet to see anything about the part-time animal control person.
And that, I think in here, I referenced that, and that is the only item in here that I think we had not done what you
Right.
wanted
It's
to
not.
do.
And see, and today, for example, the police department was so tied up with the fire department there was a dog and 2 puppies on South Main Street that I wouldn't even call about that were in the road because I knew the police were tied up. If we have our part-time animal control person, hopefully I could have been able to call about them then. Obviously, no one is feeding them because their bones were showing, but the puppies were getting in the street. But that's my only concern. I know that we're advertising for other positions, but in all the reports I've seen, I haven't seen that we've advertised yet for animal control.
That is correct. That's on the list, and I don't have any excuse. It just has not been done. But
Okay.
We now, as far as the holding facility, and I think I did address that.
You did.
We're looking for some guidance from the state on that, but the part-time, we do have a part-time animal control officer, obviously, but he's more into cleaning pens and things like that and feeding animals, but we also are adding another.
Right. So
That is the one thing that you picked on my list that hasn't been done. But
sorry, I read the whole thing.
No,
I was very happy.
I said it wasn't 100% done, but
I know, but
that's the one item. So,
but that's an item that's very important to me
Yes, ma'am.
because of, how I'm about animals, and I know everybody in this audience is thinking, why didn't you stop? Because I was on my way back to work, and I'm hoping that they've gone home and whoever's taking care of them, but it was definitely a mama and puppies. And, but I personally would not call the police department today because they were so slammed that if they needed somebody to go away, it needed to be for a true emergency. And if our animal control person had been in place, then I could have made the phone call to whomever that is going or would be, and I could have at least not made sure at 5 o'clock when I came home that they were still not there or laying in the road, and fortunately they weren't. So, yeah, if we can get on that, I'd appreciate it.
yes, ma'am.
Mayor, I'd just like to commend the town manager and the department heads and individual boards because this is our report card of what you say you're going to do.
Right.
And I'm real pleased with what I see, and I look forward to our next retreat. But, it's everybody, and so write them down from the planning, all the boards, and the employees, and David, for your leadership. I thank you for that. It looks like we're moving forward, and I hope the paper will take the time and space to print all this so folks can read it.
And I really like this report here in November because it really shows that you all do what we ask and what we have talked about needs to be done. And to me, all these red things, I loved them because it was answer, answer, answer. So.
Okay. Good. And this is just a report, so no action for us to take on.
Right.
All right. report on traffic control on Ryan Drive is item number 7.
Mayor, Commissioners, last month there was some discussion about Ryan Drive and the safety with the new football field coming into play and all the soccer games and everything going on. And so there was some discussion on how to fix that. We talked about putting a gate, and we ended up doing temporary speed bumps with the idea of getting 2 more sets because we can get those for free through Governor's Highway Safety Program. Well, we found out after the meeting that we can't submit those until tomorrow. And so tomorrow we'll submit that, and there's some other things that we need to get from them. And the reason we're going through Governor Highway is because they're free. Normally they're $1,000 a set. We can get them free. It'll take 3 to 6 months to get them. And then hopefully we'll have them in by the spring sports when they come in. But we did have 1 pair of temporary speed bumps that we did set out. I think they've been really effective. As a matter of fact, I was just talking to David Miller, who eats lunch out at the rec field every day under the gazebo or the shelter, and he said they're effective 99% of the time. And so that's where we are as far as the speed bumps. And Chris and Jessica are here. I don't know if they want to say if they help or don't help. We have not had any complaints at the police department about them being out there. We haven't had them other than David Miller saying that they've been effective, but they will certainly slow you down. And so anything that we can do to help make that area safe, because we have so much going on, is something we need to do.
They cover the width of the street, the entire street?
Yes, sir. Well, for the most part, they do. We set a cone in the middle, and I think we've only had 1 person drive around them, but they do a pretty good job.
Okay, any questions for the chief?
No, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, continue on. All right, agenda item 8 is the consideration of amendments to the town personnel policy.
Mayor, members of the board, in your packet, there is it's actually the same item that was, excuse me, I'm trying to grab my thing. Same item that was done or presented to you last month. There's several amendments that are indicated in red in our personnel policy. And these amendments, for the most part, they just do clarification or they implement things that we're already doing as a matter of course in our day-to-day administration of the policy. These changes were, many of them were identified by our HR manager, and we've discussed all of those and have come up with what is shown in red. If you just want me to touch on these quickly, I'll be glad to. We also had an occasion to answer some questions from some of the members about clarifying some of these items, so hopefully that has addressed any concerns there. But if you look on page 10 in the ordinance that you have, the agenda package that you have, policy, there is a new definition for auxiliary or reserve police officer. And this is just a straight definition. We never had one before, never had a definition, but we have used some auxiliary and reserve police officers. We figured we needed to define exactly what they do, what their qualifications are, that kind of thing. So that's a new definition. That's on 10. Also on page 10, there is a new definition for emergency response action team. These are individuals who are required to work during emergency or adverse conditions and have been designated by the town manager and or their department head as essential to department operations during emergencies. Unfortunately, we've had several emergencies with hurricanes and snowstorms and things like that. So we refer to this team, but we haven't defined it. So this actually adds a definition in your packet or in the policy. If you turn to page 11, probationary period, this is just spells out exactly what we're doing now. It's a clarification. It's not actually a policy change. It's actually what we're doing now. It just defines what a probationary period or what period is served by new employees, either full-time or part-time employees. Basically, you have a 6-month probationary period for full-time permanent employees and 12-month for regular part-time employees. And at the end of that period, they would be considered for permanent status or regular status if they complete their probationary period in a satisfactory fashion. Also, on the bottom of that page, regular part-time employee just defines what that is. In the past, it was an employee that normally worked at least 20 hours a week and less than 1,000 hours in a rolling calendar year. In order to address retirement issues and some other issues, it's been redefined as a person appointed to a budgeted part-time allocated position for a minimum of 12 months and works less than 1,000 hours in a rolling calendar year. What that means is if you're hired in April 1st, you work 1,000 or less between April 1st, 2018 and April 1st, 2019. So that's what the rolling calendar year is. It's not based on a fiscal year or a calendar year as in January 1st to December 31st. On page 12, standby time, there's a new definition here. It does exactly what we've been doing now. It's just a definition is actually listed in here, whereas before it was not. Page 16, there's a reference to probationary pay increases and what a regular employee would get after a probationary period, and also it eliminates it basically clarifies that section and eliminates some language that's unnecessary and redundant, and basically, again, does what we're already doing, 5% at the end of a 6-month probationary period or 12 months for a part-time employee. And also spells out that only regular part-time employees are on a 12-month probationary period, not regular employees. And I think in the past there was some reference to police officers being on a 12-month probationary period. They are actually on a 6-month probationary period, just like other employees. Also on page 16, there is specific reference to our performance evaluations and conferences that we have at least once a year to review an employee's strengths, accomplishments, areas of improvement, goals for the next year. We always do that annually. We've been doing them since I've been here. We've reviewed the calendar year, and we normally do the evaluations in February. So we review in February for the previous 12-month calendar year. So we're already doing that. We've been doing that. It just puts it in the policy. On 17, there's some clarifying language which talks about promotions and where a person's employee salary is when it's already above the hiring rate. How people get raises percentage-wise. The percentage doesn't change. It just defines what you do if you're at or above the hiring rate. Again, it's exactly what we do now. It's just put that in the official policy. Page 18 just clarifies overtime pay provisions. Again, consistent with FLSA regulations. It just states what the law says and how we conduct apply our overtime policy now. Again, no change, just putting into language what we're already doing. Also in 19, it eliminates reference to callback pay and just talks about standby pay. Callback pay is addressed in another section of the ordinance, so it was redundant. So removed that section, but that's just a housekeeping issue. On page 21, this is a policy change. It does eliminate the bonus for part-time and probationary employees. Really nowhere that I've ever known ever gave a bonus to someone who's not a regular status employee. They're on probation. They don't get raises. They don't get anything during that period of time. They have to become a regular employee, come off of probation. So that just sort of spells that out, and also talks about when you're eligible for your bonus supplement. It's based on years of service as of December 31st. And so the change here is that it's basically just for regular full-time employees, not part-time employees, because there was a problem with the definition of what is a part-time employee last year, and it created a lot of problem for implementation. Recruitment section, which is on page 22, we eliminated some wording there to reflect how we recruit employees. We don't always put things with the Employment Security Commission, whereas in the old policy it said that we did. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Depends on the position. On page 23, it eliminates reference to sworn police officers and fire personnel not having the same probationary period as other employees. We've made that consistent, that's 6 months for everyone. Page 26, we've eliminated the section on dual employment. That language is no longer legally allowed due to overtime and retirement rules, so we didn't want to have something where we actually ran afoul of employment law, so we eliminated that section entirely. On page 28, performance evaluation, we eliminated that. That's been combined in an earlier section that I've already referenced about how we do evaluation, time of year and all that. So that was just redundant, so we just combined that in an earlier section. Page 30, there's several things that clarify certain, again, things that we are already doing, but weren't in writing. One references work from home. We don't necessarily compensate people who work from home during certain events, and of course, if there's a special, unusual circumstance, we may, but for the most part, we don't do that. Also on that page, there was a reference to how staff is paid during adverse weather events and when there's a state of emergency declared. There are different rules for that. In the past, there was sort of somewhat loose interpretation. Now it specifically spells out how people are paid, and they're basically paid 2 times the rate if they're called in. Well, during a state of emergency, they're paid at 2 times their normal rate. For the adverse weather conditions, it depends on whether they're specifically called in for response to that event or not. On page 36, there is some language that was eliminated related to vacation leave. We felt like it was not necessary. It's already addressed in the earlier part of that paragraph, so we eliminated that. On page 37, we just define when vacation leave is accrued each month. Again, nothing changes, it's stated now, whereas before it was just implied. Also on that page, there's reference to maximum accumulation of vacation leave, and it defines how much is you can accumulate, how you can get paid for it, and when you're eligible to be paid for it. So that's, again, all things that we're doing now, it just wasn't stated in the policy. Sick leave, there was some language on page 38 that was already addressed elsewhere, so we eliminated that. 39 addresses sick leave and how it's accumulated, and also how it's paid. And there's also an incentive pay, which is not new, it's just we specifically address in writing how that's administered, which is how we're already doing it. Page 41, family medical leave. Again, we just added some language there that is exactly what our current policy, what we're doing now. We just added some clarifying language. On page 54, this language is, it's the current policy. We've just switched the order of some of the language here, but it actually doesn't change the, just flows a little bit better, the wording. 57, 58, we're striking out, in one case, we substate shall for may. There's another case where it has usually, and we eliminate that and make it required. The other things are just clarification items where we've taken language out. There's no real policy change there. It's just cleaning some things up. And I think we're getting close to the end here. I think on page 64, in adverse emergency and adverse weather policy, there is, if you go down to in 1A, that is a policy change, but it's consistent with the earlier pay rate for states of emergency, which was referenced earlier in the policy. And also if you go to B, this is the current, this is what we actually do. It just wasn't spelled out in the policy, so this actually clarifies what we're already doing now. 65, again, that's a continuation of the same thing. How members of the emergency response team are compensated during weather emergencies and also states of emergency. It's consistent with what we're already doing right now. And then the last item on 67, it talks about retirement parties and how much money is allocated for that. And if there's no party, there's no funds dispersed. So you either get a party or you don't. If you don't want one, you don't get anything. So that's it. So,
all right. Exhaustive.
Ran through those really fast, but most of them are clarification items.
Okay, does anybody up here have a question for David concerning this policy?
I do have a question.
Okay.
And I want to go to section 6, performance pay and evaluation. And I have.
What page is that on?
That's on page 16.
16, okay. Okay.
16.
16, page 16.
15.
Based on section 6, performance pay and evaluation, you state that every employee must be evaluated at least once a year.
Yes.
However, I did not see any reference to a required 6 months evaluation. It basically says that consultation between the employee and supervisor regarding performance at times other than the annual performance is anticipated and encouraged. And I'm wondering if there is a required provision for a 6 months evaluation, because without a required provision, a person can go all year. You can fire them at the end of the year for something they did 6 months ago. And if it had been evaluated, you could correct it or improve it towards the end. And when you look at the due process for the employee, it gives you documentation for rationale as why you are dismissing a person at the end of the year.
Okay, the 6 month, we do a 6-month evaluation if someone is a new employee at the end of the 6 months to determine whether they go off of probation.
I got that.
And then if you're already a regular status employee, you would be evaluated once a year. There is no provision whereby you would have to do a 6-month evaluation on just a regular status employee, it's not on probation. But if there's a performance issue, the implication is that you would, as a supervisor, you would not wait for the year to end, that you would actually address that issue earlier as the issue arises.
And I was looking at this as a proactive way of check and balance to make sure that everything is on track with that employee. Because even if you have an employee that's been there 5 and 10 years, things happen and behavior changes. But it gives you a way to catch something at the end of that year.
Well, we don't do, I mean, we do it as the need arises. And obviously, we have, you could argue that everyone's performance is evaluated constantly, not in a sit-down, let's fill out a form way, but if someone is doing something that is not up to standards, the supervisor would identify that and sit down and document that counseling session or whatever it was, and it would be put in a file. Or it could be just an oral warning, hey, this is an issue, don't do it again. But it's not a formal form that you sit down and fill out unless it arises to the, where you're actually doing something really major violation. So if it's just a regular evaluation, you're correct. It doesn't occur every 6 months. It occurs once a year.
Well, I was just wondering if you ever had any situations where you had to terminate someone without that measure.
No, you would have several conferences and you would have several instances where you would have sat down with that individual and outlined issues that needed improvement and given a time frame to address those areas of improvement, that kind of thing. So it wouldn't occur just at the end of a year's time. You wouldn't say, well, and this is January, but back last August you did blah, 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 and, that was bad, but I didn't talk to you about it, but it's bad and you need to go. That doesn't occur. Believe me, if somebody is doing something, if their performance is substandard, then they would be addressed. It would be addressed through the year, either depending on how the severity of the offense. If it's like a one-time thing or you're careless or whatever, then.
And I understood that. It's just that when I read the language, it didn't allow for a 6 months evaluation. It says it's encouraged, it's anticipated. So that sounds more like a practice rather than a policy.
It's not a requirement, but it's available at any time. Certainly, the formal evaluation occurs at the end of the probationary period, written, just like the annual. It's submitted with any sort of adjustment or recommendation related to permanent status or regular employee status. In between, it's as needed.
So the process you're using now gives you adequate feedback to evaluate the person for a whole year.
Yes, and anyone there are lots of instances when your performance is evaluated, certainly informally, but even in a formal setting, especially if there's some deficiency. All of the supervisors know that they should take action along the way if someone is, not meeting standards.
I noticed that at the end of that paragraph, it says procedures for the performance evaluation program shall be published by the town manager. That, Alma makes a good point, and it may be something you could address, in that.
You mean the encouraging
performance evaluation program that you want to publish?
Okay. Publish the evaluation program?
Yeah, just, as part of the evaluation program, you could formalize it by making it a part of that. I think it's a good point that she makes.
Okay.
All right, so you're going to,
Just a suggestion, but yeah,
Thank
thank you.
I mean, sure, we can make that in a formal way known. I think our employees all know that they're potentially could be or they're being evaluated on a regular basis. But we could make that, we could state that if that's addressing your.
is that it?
Yes.
Anybody else have any questions on this? Comments? All right, given that David is going to do what Commissioner Dixon asked him about the evaluation program, given that change or that addition, I guess, is there a motion that we approve this personnel policy?
I'll make a motion, we approve the personnel policy
And you're expecting that he will?
with the recommended
All right,
changes.
any discussion? Okay, it is exhaustive report here, but certainly it looks like they've spent a lot of time on it. All right, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it. And now we'll go to agenda item 9 is a contribution to the Chamber of Commerce.
And I'm happy to present this. The Chamber's got a bigger than normal Taste of Farmville plan for this year. The Chamber typically budgets around $3,500 for the Taste of Farmville. This year, we're probably going to spend, we would like to be able to spend about $5,000. And the town gives the Chamber a nice donation each year, and the Chamber manages a pretty tight budget. And we manage it too tightly to be able to spend $1,500 more that we don't have, and we're hoping the town would recognize the efforts and make that contribution, in addition to the other things with the street closures and the police officers in place and things.
The funding, the money that they have goes for entertainment.
For the Taste of Farmville, primarily entertainment. We'll spend, hard to say right now, but somewhere around $3,200 or $3,300 this year on musicians, based on the number of musicians we have now. We have between 6 and 10 musicians more than we had last year. So, and between 6 and 10 more businesses participate.
I was going to say that translates into more business.
It does, yes. More businesses and more musicians. There'll be a few musicians in the streets, not just confined to the businesses, but there we are, and I'm going to get it wrong, but there's several groups from the schools who are also participating, and the Chamber would like to make, the Chamber typically pays these musicians $100, and we'd like to make a $100 donation to the schools, to the school band program or strings program, whatever it is, in the same way that we would typically pay a professional musician.
All right. Anybody have any questions for Commissioner Dixon on this?
I will add to that about the schools. It's very important to them to receive a little payment because that's how they save money for uniforms and things like that. We actually pay the bands for the Christmas parade as well, so for appearing, and so that's very important to them that they receive a little money because they don't get the federal funding or anything to do those type of things with.
And I do know that last year there was a group that was very popular, but they didn't have enough funding to get them to come back, so.
And I'm the one making the request in Judy's absence, but Judy's the one who's done all the work, so I appreciate the effort she's gone through to make this a good one.
All right. Not you, but anyone else who wants to make a motion.
I will make a motion that we do a one-time contribution of $1,500 to help offset the increased cost of the Taste of Farmville, which is a huge highlight for Farmville.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Elks that we approve this $1,500 one-time gift or fund. Any discussion? All those in favor of this motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it. Now we're down to what we had, it was agenda item 10, which is funding for the HP SUG, and the request there was $10,000. But I'm assuming that that we don't have to make all that at one time if we choose to do otherwise. So, given that, anybody want to speak to that?
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment on that. In the budget in June, we had some money earmarked for higher education. I'm of the belief and have been an advocate for HB SUG since both of my sons are alumni from there, that become a national landmark. And not simply because they went there, but so many people in the town did. I have just a little bit of two options here. Is if we do the full 10,000, we'd almost have to wait to the budget next year, which would put us in June of 2019. And what Mr. Joyner's wanting to do is he's wanting to complete this by April 2019. So I would ask the board if it's agreeable, if the board would match the 5,300 that they already have raised. They have 53, and I'm asking the board to match 53 since we got this late tonight, and we haven't had a chance to go back and see, which puts me in agreement with the mayor that we make this contribution of $5,300 tonight and then follow up with whatever we deem necessary later, because there are two more phases that come behind this, and this certainly would put the HB subcommittee on a path to reaching their 17,000. So if that sounds like something the board could agree with without going back and pulling that particular line item, I would like to make a motion, Mayor, if you would entertain that we do we match that of $5,300 now.
Okay, and he's talking about the second item
Yes, sir.
on here, page.
Yes, sir.
That they have raised.
Yes, sir.
All right. You heard the motion. Any discussion on this? All those in favor of this motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that's what we're going to do is match the 5,300 now. All right. At this time, if you have your agenda, you'll see where we have another citizen comments, and that's where you can comment on anything that's taking place here this evening. Anyone have any citizen comments? If not,
May I say something, Mayor Evans?
yes.
Mayor Evans recognized earlier in the evening about Hometown Halloween, but I really wanted to particularly give a shout out to Wes and his crew, the fire department, the police department, and David Miller, because they all helped make Hometown Halloween what it was, along with all the other groups that came in and participated. I was on Church Street, so I didn't see a lot of what was happening on Main Street, which I understand was much busier than we were. Not that we weren't busy down on our end, but I understand the bulk of it was down on Main Street. But if it wasn't for the police department, the fire department, David, and Public Works, it would have not been as successful as it was, and I appreciate all their help.
And so do I, and, try to make mention of that. Someone did tell me that one of your crew was out after the people left were picking up the cups.
Yes, they were picking up.
And before
Popcorn
the street sweeper was able to take care of it.
Yes.
All right, anyone else? Thank you, Brenda. Anyone else that's got anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion for us to go into closed session. That's authorized by North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A5 for land acquisition. So is there a motion that we go into closed session?
That we go into closed session.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Hobbs that we go into closed session. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? No. The ayes have it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are